Hey, my name's Chloe, and um, for about 3.5 years to 4 years now, I've been a born again Christian, and I can't understand. You can't understand how amazing my life has been, but I feel like really God has put on my heart this morning I want to record my testimony, not just to tell you guys about my terrible past, but to just lift him up and just glorify him and what he's done and the transformation he's done in my life. So Um, yeah, if you've got a few minutes, I'm just going to share my testimony. But yeah, all the glory goes back to him, and this is all my choices. This is all I've done in my life. I guess trying to find who I am. But yeah, my family. I have three other siblings, and I've got my mum and dad. They're together. They're happy, and we've grown out quite a happy family, and it's been really cool. I've been really blessed. Like, we aren't poor, we aren't rich, but we're just really satisfied with what we've got. Um, yeah, so I've grown up knowing them, and yeah, so I'll start off in high school. So in high school, I guess things really change from primary school. Like, you've got a lot more that you see, that you do. You've got more, I'd say, peer pressure. Like, there's a lot more of that going on in high school than primary school. A lot more visual stuff, such as like the kissing and relationships and stuff like that. And I guess it's a real big change from primary school. But yeah, I went to a different outer zone high school. So it was a lot harder to make friends, but luckily I slipped right in and I made some pretty awesome friends. And I was one of those people who would only stay with the one group. I was kind of like a floater. I'd be friends with everyone, which was really cool. Like, everyone knew me, and it was awesome. It was really cool to know everyone and to have so many friends in a public school. So so about year 9, I was 15. My birthday's at the end of the year, so I would have been 15, and I got invited to my first party. So I know a lot of people in my year were going to these parties from a younger age, but I always had this, like, I don't know, this caution to step back and not go to them. But in year 9, about winter year 9, I got invited to my first party with alcohol and all that other stuff. And so I turned up not with anything to drink. I just turned up. Mum dropped me off, and she was going to pick me up around midnight, which was awesome. But I remember walking in and just seeing this like, I guess, false freedom for people to be who they wanted to be. Like, everyone was drinking, and everyone just seemed to have this personality that they didn't care what they were doing at that time. They just went ahead and did it. And for so long in my life, I'd known people, but I've never actually been myself, because I'd always been fearful of what people would think of me. So this night I ended up drinking for the first time, and not just drinking a little bit, but I don't know, I didn't have lots. I had maybe a couple of UDLs and some goon, as we'll call it. But this feeling of being drunk via alcohol made me realize how free I could be, and how no one could judge me because of the way that alcohol just affects your body. And so when I got picked up at midnight, I just felt really drunk, obviously, but I felt like this wasn't going to be the end of it. Like, I really, really wanted to continue to go and keep doing this, and so this is not where it stopped. Like, first it used to be just a party each weekend on a Saturday night, and yeah, and it eventually turned up to being two parties a week. And so I'd go Friday, Saturday, and then I'd be making sure that I was drinking at all of them. And I wouldn't just drink normal, like, I don't know, I guess I don't know what normal is, but I would make sure that I would actually get really wasted to make sure that I would be having a good night. And so I'd be drinking up to maybe a bottle of vodka, 2 packs of cruisers, a pack of double blacks, and I'd have like maybe half a bottle of Cosmo, which is a bit more, not as high percentage as vodka, but it was pretty a lot. And so I'd pretty much just, when I'm drinking, like, I'd drink beforehand. I'd make sure I turned up drunk so that when I made my entrance, people felt just happy to be around me. And so I'd get there drunk and I'd continue to drink. I wouldn't stop when I felt drunk. I'd keep drinking to make sure I stayed drunk, but that would just end up me just being absolutely disgusting wasted. Like, I would sit on the driveway and make myself vomit so I could drink more. Like, nobody should be able to do that. Like, your body should not have to vomit so it can contain more of something, a poison. Like, alcohol is a poison, and that's why our body's affected that, and I know that now. But I guess when you're at that age and you're vulnerable to just do anything to feel confident and feel accepted, and you're willing to do it. And so I ended up, from this age, after going to parties every week, pretty much after school every day, I'd come home and I'd have a secret stash in my room and I'd just start drinking because I just love the feeling of being confident and feeling of I don't care. And so I'd start drinking even more. I wouldn't drink before school, but I'd drink constantly just to make myself feel loved and accepted by my friends or people I didn't know, just to make friends. But yeah, so I continue this party season, and on weekends and stuff or anything, like I try to make myself a bit more accepted by friends and even just older guys, to try and fill a void in my heart where I felt like if you had a friend who was an older guy, then you'd be more cooler or you'd be more accepted by everyone else. And so I used to organise to hang out with a lot of older guys from school and not from school. But before I do that, I'd make sure that I was drinking. I'd had maybe 2/5 of a bottle of vodka or Jim Beam or something that was hid in my room to make sure I felt confident and seemed to be that person that everyone sees me to only be, because I'd constantly be filled with alcohol. And so yeah, so I ended up hanging out with this one guy that I know months after I started drinking. And so yeah, he picked me up and we went down to a place, I don't want to mention it, but yeah, because I obviously wasn't exactly sober. I understand now, like I look back on it and I put myself in a vulnerable position, and I feel so gross and dirty now that I look back on it, but everything happens for a reason, so we can bounce up to God. So yeah, I ended up being in this car with this guy and it got pretty late and I was kind of keen to go home, but being in this position where obviously there's no one else around except for us, something's gonna happen. So I ended up being in this car with this guy and we're just listening to music, and then the next minute he leans over and starts to kiss me, and I was just tired and I didn't want what was happening, and so I was kind of turning my head away, but he kept leaning in for more and kind of pinning my arms down, and I wasn't saying no, but my body actions were pulling away, and so I don't understand why he didn't stop. But one thing led to another and he took advantage of me that night, and so it just really sucks, like the things that we don't understand, we don't realise, but we put ourselves in, and it makes me feel gross to know that this happened, but I know that bad things don't happen from God. Sometimes he just lets them happen so that we can somehow come back to him and look to him for an answer, look to him for goodness, look to him for some form of response of his love. But anyways, his car ended up breaking down while we were there, and so I had to sit just awkwardly. I just sat and looked out the window while he was on the phone trying to call people to pick us up because his car battery died. And so his friend picked us up, and I was in the car, and it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and it just felt so dirty. I just wanted to go home and just wash myself and constantly just scrub my skin and just get this feeling off me. But obviously this feeling wasn't the actual dirt or this thing. It was just obviously that sin, that disgusting feeling of sin that sits on you, and you just want to scream because you can't get rid of it. But anyways, the drinking didn't stop from there, and so I'd constantly be going out drinking again and sleeping in cars. It's because I didn't want to go home and show my parents the way that I was and the way that I was letting my body. I didn't want to disappoint them because I love them so much, but I just did it. And anyways, I started looking in the mirror at myself while I was under the influence and when I wasn't, and just hating the way that I looked. Like, you look on the internet and you look at other people at school and they just are so beautiful and they're so skinny and they're so just amazing. And everyone, these people, these girls always just got this amazing attention, and I guess me being at this vulnerable state, I just wanted some sort of attention for being the way that I looked and being the way that I am. So I started to vomit after every meal, and so I became bulimic. And it was funny because I remember speaking to some girls from school, his close friends, and I was like, look, I think I need some help because this is what's happening at home. And they actually came out and said, no, it's cool, like, we all do it as well, so this is what happens, this is what girls do. And from then I was just like, oh, okay, well, if all girls do it, then I guess I must do it, and I should be able to do it as well. So I kept doing it without a fear, knowing that, hey, if I do this, I'm not going to get as fat as I could be after eating some food. So I was doing that, and then I was shoplifting as well from year 7 onwards because I didn't have a job, and I hated asking mum and dad for money. And I came from a school which was quite blessed, like every family was quite blessed to have money and always constantly having money. And so I used to shoplift at the shops. I'd steal just jewellery and makeup and, I don't know, small items that weren't too bad. But yeah, towards this time mum started understanding that I was receiving all these things, but she didn't know where I was coming from, and so I stopped because I knew, one, I felt guilty, but at the same time I didn't want to be found out and disappoint my parents. And so yeah, so this time I'm probably about year 10, year 11, bulimic and an alcoholic, and so I'm not even the age of drinking yet, but yeah, so around about year 11 I found myself a boyfriend, and so I was like really happy, and he was awesome. He was such a nice guy. He always had a heart for someone else, and it was really awesome to be such an amazing person. But I guess like the relationship started off really good and we were looking out for each other, but then I guess we got too comfortable around each other and we just share the things that were on our hearts rather than discussing it and making it good. We really just left it and hated each other for it. But after a couple of years, we broke up for the first time, and so I didn't understand why we were at the time, but I just knew I hated the feeling of not having something to feel like this hole in my heart. And so I tried to kill myself a couple of times. Actually, we have And in the family, like, my mum told me about her brother who killed himself at the age of 21. He used to be a drug addict and overdosed. And so I had this idea of, why don't you overdose? You get a feeling of being high, and also you get to end off being high. And so I just went into the cupboard and found any prescription pills we could find. Like, we have heaps. We have a massive box of it, and for cold and for Panadol and for hay fever and for all these other things that we have. And so I just grabbed as many as I could. I think maybe about 40 or 50, and I just took them all. And I just remember feeling I could not stand. I felt so sick and felt disgusting, but somehow I managed to live through it. I didn't end up in hospital. I just woke up the next day and I just felt just still drunk and still high. I just didn't understand why it didn't work, and I just kept hating myself. And so I just find any pair of scissors and I'd just be scratching into my wrist. Like, I wouldn't cut because it was just too quick, and so I just get scissors and just dig into my wrist until it just hurt and left massive marks, because I wanted to just know that whenever I looked down, like, that something had been done about the feelings that I was feeling. Like, I just wanted to just continue just to hate myself for what was happening in my life. And so we ended up getting back together again, but he was a lot different this time. He ended up introducing me to these friends that he made friends with, and they were his a connection of these drug dealers. So every time we'd go over, they'd constantly be smoking weed, or before they'd go out, they'd have a lot of drugs around their house for everyone. And this time I was about 18, 19, so I'd finish high school and constantly just be over there every day. Like, it wasn't far from my house, so I'd just meet up. I'd go there to be with him, but also these people were so nice. Like, they were really, really good, but I guess just their intentions weren't cool. So yeah, so I guess one thing leads to another. When you're trying to be with someone and trying to make them love you again, you try to do everything you can and make them feel as comfortable as they can so they can do that. And so I started doing these drugs with these people. And I remember this one time they made these like hash cookies, which is just like an incredible amount of weed like blended in these like a pastry, so it's just easier to take. But I remember this batch, like I hadn't really done it before, and so I took this like Lamington or like a cake or whatever, but I remember eating it, and I'd never been like so scared in my life. Like, I couldn't express the way that I felt, like out of my body expression, but deep inside I was just like, I needed help. Like, I remember sitting on this couch and just looking at this wall, and I just felt like this, like, I don't know, like I can understand it now. I swear I could feel like these like demons just running around me and just teasing me, and knowing that I was in this vulnerable position. And so I ended up being paralyzed on this couch, and I remember needing to go to the bathroom and I just couldn't get up. I could, like, when someone called my name, I'd be able to turn my head, and that's about it. And so I remember somehow crawling to this bathroom and just being stuck there for a couple of hours. And it was just such a scary thought, like, that a certain thing can do this to you. People do it constantly, all the time, to get this feeling, and it's just, I guess after I started using it more after that, I just understood how it was cool to feel that. But and so I started to get into more drugs. I'd be doing like speed, which is or goey, which is this like paste of this speed, and you rub it on your teeth, and it just gives you this crazy energy. And I remember I'd constantly be using it to go to clubs around where we live, and I'd end up biting holes in the sides of my mouth because the energy just makes you want to chatter your teeth all the time. And I remember I'd have these holes in the side of my mouth, like you just had this thin spot here, and I just have constantly blood pouring out of my mouth because I just was taking so much and just had so much energy, especially for someone who was only just becoming into this. And so I'd be doing that, and then pretty much anytime I'd be going to a club or anything, I'd somehow find a drug dealer and get acid tablets or pingers, as people call it, and just anything that would just make me not feel the feeling that I could of just being alive. Like, it was boring to me, and I just wanted to feel something that was out of this world and out of my comfort zone and out of that. And so obviously whenever you take drugs or drinking, it doesn't end up leaving you feel very great the next morning or through the night. Like, I'd somehow be taking this goey, and I'd be so energetic, and then 1 minute I'll be just crying and wanting to kill myself, and I didn't understand why I'd all of a sudden have so much energy and then have nothing and just hate it. So yeah, so this is like my first year out, but I got this job, and this really amazing girl worked there as well. And I remember just seeing her the first time and just seeing this joy in her, and I was just like, oh, she must be like into drugs and partying as well, because everyone does it, like that's what they do. But I remember when she made friends with me. Her name was Celia. And she was like, just made friends with me, and I was just like, man, this girl's awesome. And she invited me to church for the first time, and I was like, are you kidding me? No way. Like, I prefer to just sleep all day after having a hangover on a Saturday. And so yeah, and so yeah, she kept asking me after months and months of coming